everyone can customize Empire Paintball's top-level jerseys with the engineered materials, cuts, and types of paddings that the pros demand. Choose your colors, add personalized names and numbers, and team and sponsor logos without any hidden design fees. It's all inclusive. Go to tag-customs.com to get started today on your team's custom jerseys.
Welcome to The Breakdown, brought to you by PaintballAccess.com in association with PB Nation. I'm Matty Marcel alongside Todd Martinez, and we have had a crazy year so far here in the PSP in 2014. 3 events are in the books, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about where everyone looks heading into this 4th event, very crucial 4th event. It's going to be happening August 8th through the 10th, so it's coming up quicker than you think, and it's going to be in Riverside, the West Coast Open. So in the lead right now, Todd, it's Edmonton Impact. They have an overall score of 526 points. They won the last event in pretty dominant fashion against Houston Heat. 7-2 was that final score, though Houston Heat did look pretty good getting there. But Impact, man, really vibing this year. They've won all the events in Europe, and they won the last event at the Mid-Atlantic Open. I'm sorry, in Chicago. They took 2nd at the Mid-Atlantic Open, and then they did take 6th at that first event. So even though they've rebuilt their squad, it's not rebuilding, it's rebuilt.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously.
We got actually, with Vicious, got a chance to play them first game of the prelims in Chicago, and you know, those guys are just tough. They're smart. Everybody on the team is playing as a team. And, you know, those are the hardest teams to beat. When, you know, one guy makes a mistake, his buddy has his back. And, you know, when you're constantly battling efforts like that on both sides of the field, then it's really tough to get anything going against guys like that. And God forbid you make a mistake, like get a penalty the second point of the match, then they're that team that's going to run off 3 straight on you real quick. Yeah. So, I mean, everything just, you know, firing on all cylinders. You know, we always talk about the team that, you know, is sitting in the lead, is really playing the best paintball. That's the thing that seems to be happening for them. You know, the just coincidence or not, I don't know. But, you know, when you have guys that are stepping up and everybody's playing to their potential, when you have everybody buying into the system and everybody stepping up and, you know, really caring about the organization and what's going on and giving it their all and giving 100% effort, then that's why you have a team that's sitting in first place.
I think it has a lot to do also with some people coming to their own. The Yakmek brothers, Zach and Zane, are top-level players now. Zach Yakmek won the MVP from the last event in Chicago, and rightfully so. Dave Bain said that he's the most consistent paintball player, as he's playing right now, the most consistent player he's ever played with other than Ryan Greenspan. That's some pretty impressive company if you're Zach Yakmek. His brother Zane is playing great as well, too. They have amazing weapons in the Justins, Justin Cornell and Justin Rabikoff. Joshua Met, when he's healthy, is also a stunner out there. And the new pickups, you know, they went a little unconventional route, picking up some guys that weren't those tried and tested high-level pros with wins under their belt. They picked up, other than Rainey Stanzik, but you know, they did pick up, you know, they got Nick Laval, they got Danny Park, and those guys it took them, they didn't start contributing right away first event, but they are all now contributing. And also, I think their coach, Bart Yakmek, an owner, is also coming to his own as a coach as well, too. So just phenomenal year that they're having. Let's see if they can continue to put up those numbers and do as well as they've done so far. Very good chance. They are definitely the favorite heading into this next event. Again, August 8th through the 10th. And then number 2, man, no surprise there. San Diego Dynasty, they won the Mid-Atlantic Open. They took 4th at the first event in Dallas, and then they took 5th. They did not actually make it to Sunday's competition and lost their first 2 games in the prelims.
Yeah, after playing their first couple games on Friday, everybody was like, oh, here comes Dynasty again. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they had a rough Saturday, and losing those 2 games is what ended up putting them out. But, I mean, 2 games, having 1 bad day. If you look at Impact, you know, this season, they basically had 1 bad day, the first day of the Dallas Open, and have been playing awesome since then. So Dynasty, it took them all the way up until the 2nd day of Chicago Open to finally have a couple bumps in the road. But I fully expect them to be right back at it at Riverside.
Well, it's just, you know, that's what makes it interesting, man. We say this a lot because it's true. Excuse me. But is that every point is important. Every game is important. You really can't have a bad day, and we've seen across the board teams and players have bad days, and sometimes it costs you the tournament. And not only does it cost you the tournament as far as your chance to win it, but it also costs your ability to even stay in the Champions Division, which we will get to as we move down the ranks a little bit here. But yeah, San Diego Dynasty, last year's Series Champions winner. They won 2 events last year, but definitely a favorite heading into the next event as well. Though last year they did start to slip a little bit towards the end of the year. So, but they know that, and they got an amazing coach, arguably the best in the game in Rusty Glaze. So he'll definitely be trying to guide that ship to another victory at the West Coast Open. So, and they're at 511 total points. So ranked 3rd is Tampa Bay Damage, who they haven't won an event since last year at Mid-Atlantic Open. But that's not too long ago. They have pretty much the same roster. And, you know, Damage is definitely very strong. They're a favorite in any event that they play in. They took 7th at the first, 4th at the last, 4th at the Mid-Atlantic Open, and then 3rd at the last event.
Well, what happened with Tampa Bay Damage, the last 2 events at MAO, they snuck in, but they still played some pretty good paintball, and they ended up playing Dynasty in the semis, who was on fire and ended up winning the tournament. And then...
Well, wait, okay, sir, go ahead, but I just have a crazy little curveball to throw, like a what if.
And then they go to Chicago, are still pick up their game on Saturday and start playing a little bit better, and then they're the ones that ended up running into Impact, who ended up winning the event.
Yeah.
So both times they made the semis, they ended up running into the team that won the event.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but you got to beat those guys if you want to win events. Yeah, I mean, let's go. That's what you want. But yeah, it's been tough for Tampa Bay Damage. But I'll tell you what, if Jason Edwards didn't step up and in a tie game shoot every single person in that 1 point. Remember the relegation game? Tampa Bay Damage played in a relegation game in the very first event against Houston Heat. And it was neck and neck to the very end, and then Jason Edwards stepped up and got himself a 5-pack. Those are incredibly rare. It means you have to shoot all 5 guys in a 5-man point. And he was able to do it. And I mean, what if he didn't do that? What if they lost that? And I mean, they ended up going on to play in the semifinals. It was kind of lit a fire underneath them. And that's great to see because, you know, Tampa Bay Damage is one of those legendary franchises. It'd be great to see them hoist a trophy again. So, but, you know, again, definitely a favorite. These top level teams, any one of these teams could step up and win the next event. But the question is, who is it going to be? That's why we're having these conversations. The next one is a team that is slowly and surely getting to be a little bit more of a cohesive unit. So many guys on this roster to choose from. They have a legendary coach, the most legendary coach in the game. It's the Los Angeles Ironmen. Shane Pestana came back this year after guiding Royalty for the past couple seasons to again guide the Los Angeles Ironmen, and they almost got it done at the last event, but they ended up losing in the semifinals to Houston Heat.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about the Ironmen is that they've been consistent, and that's really all you can ask for early for a new team. Coming out, taking 5th at Dallas, 6th at MAO, and then 4th here. I mean, the 5th and the 6th is kind of, you know, it's kind of a wash.
That means you didn't play Sunday.
It means you didn't play on Sunday.
But you didn't have to play in the relegation
being
game.
able to step up, and I believe they went 3-1 in the prelims in Chicago, and make a Sunday, you know, that does wonders for your youth because, you know, when you get those guys the experience and, you know, actually like reaching a goal of being able to play on Sunday, the kids on that team that have never played that day before, you know, it's another goal, it's another level of reach for them, and it really only drives young players, you know, with high aspirations to do a lot better. So, you know, they definitely took a step up at PSP Chicago, and they're sitting in 4th place, and still nothing but high expectations for them.
But their star killer on the Snake side did pull his hamstring. Alex Mouse Goldman is tentative for the Riverside event. He does say he is going to play, but out in London in the European event, he did pull his hamstring playing with the team that he mercenaries for over there, and so he says he's gonna play. But man, I have not seen a guy play the Snake as well as he did in his 14-kill performance. I can't remember what game that was, but it was Alex Goldman was just running a racket on the Snake side. And he started to get shut down a little bit towards the end of the event, but still. So Alex Goldman, tentative. We'll see if he is going to be gracing the field for the Los Angeles Ironmen. And if he's not, that's a big weapon that they will lose. So the 5th place team, this is a team that, Todd, you're pretty familiar with. Omaha Vicious, after taking 2nd place at the first event, going on to take 7th at the next 2 events. So I don't know, how do you feel about Vicious this year? I'm incredibly impressed by how well the guys have done to cultivate the talent that they've had and the experience that they've gotten, both moving up through the divisionals and then playing pro for years. I love your new pickups. I think the team is poised for a win here sooner rather than later.
Well, you know, I feel like, you know, the same thing happened with us. We had one bad day out there. At MAO, you know, we obviously did well in Dallas. At MAO, we came out and, you know, had a lot of close games. You know, took 7th, but, you know, the spacing in between, the separation between, you know, the first 1 through 8, you know, was not very much at MAO.
No.
You know, MAO was a special event, you know, with that field out there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this event, Chicago, we come in, have a bad first day, you know, and there's no excuses, no like, oh, this happened. Everybody was just like, yeah, we just didn't shoot people, you know, and that's the way it was. You know, we had 2 solid weekends of practice, did a ton of drills. We didn't get to play against any other teams leading up to the event until the Thursday before. We played for an hour against Top Gun. But did that hurt us? I don't know. You know, maybe, maybe not. But, you know, not trying to make any excuses. You know, we learned a lot from our Friday performance and then picked it up, you know, a little gut check time, come back and, you know, started off well against the Red Legion, you know, the first game, got some penalties. It was right after the rain. And then ended up beating the Ironmen, win 1 game, ended up having to play for relegation, and then beat X Factor in the relegation game. So, yeah, we didn't win a ton of games out there, but I just didn't feel like we played bad. You know, we had one bad day, didn't play up to our potential, but we weren't out there looking like monkeys with our head cut off.
You didn't look like chumps. Not a lot of bright lights that first day, except for Brian Bortle. Brian Bortle definitely played some ball that day for sure, which is great because, you know, the weapons that you have in those one positions on that team, Shane Colby, Trevor Reeser, I like Alexander Borromeo, and I like Schrader as well too, even though Schrader did not have a good event the last one, but still, I do think that Vicious, and obviously Matt Sossman, he's in the top 10 for the Top Gun runners so far, the 3 events, but still, if Vicious holds the line, they will win an event one of these days. So it's going to be holding the line that's the toughest thing to do. So
definitely getting better, definitely working harder, and I feel like it's only a matter of time.
I agree. So next up after that, San Antonio X Factor coming in ranked 6th, the defending world title holders, who have, you know, they took 3rd at the first event, but just kind of struggled a little bit after that. Keep getting slow starts. They've had some awesome come-from-behind victories in the prelims, but you know, they took 5th at the Mid-Atlantic Open, so they didn't play on Sunday, and then they just got relegated by Vicious at this last one, which is a heartbreaker for them. I mean, this is the world champ team right now, but they struggled mid-season last year to totally redeem themselves and actually Planet Eclipse, one of our huge sponsors. They had, you can actually go and see the whole San Antonio X Factor story and how that whole thing shook down last year as they won that world title. Look behind the scenes at how a team is built. It's a pretty fascinating story. I love the guys from San Antonio X Factor, but they'll be back. I really strongly believe that X Factor will be back. That roster's strong, and it's tough to take a loss like that and to head down into the Challengers division. But big teams, that's happened to big teams before, and you just got to, you know, again, it's cliche, but it's absolutely true. You have to fight your way through that sort of adversity, especially when you have the roster that they have, knowing what they can do when they apply themselves. And they have, you know, Archie Montemayor is just having a year. So, you know, Colt Roberts has been putting up some ridiculous numbers too, and you know, with Grayson Goff, Todd Morrow, Billy Bernaccia, and you know, obviously Dimitri Ninos is a baller too. Scott Kemp has had some phenomenal points. So that team is stacked. It's just, you know, can they get it together on a consistent basis? Inconsistency has always been a huge killer for San Antonio X Factor. So let's move on to the, you know, speaking about Planet Eclipse roster, the new season of the roster is actually about this next team. It's Chicago Aftershock. So Chicago Aftershock is one of my favorite teams to watch. They're incredibly charismatic. They play with they play with their hearts on their sleeve, and they also got relegated at this last event by the Iceman Upton 187 crew, who have not played well in the prelims, but always seem to get that win in that relegation game. But Chicago Aftershock, they took 8th at the first event, and then they surprised everyone at Mid-Atlantic Open on a really conservative layout. And they're not a conservative team, but they ended up taking 3rd. That was very impressive. And then they took 10th at the last one, getting relegated.
Yeah, I mean, I really felt that. I thought that this would be a good field for Aftershock.
I thought so too.
You know, I just think that they definitely underperformed this last event. I mean, obviously they took 10th.
And penalties.
But, I mean, penalties will kill you every time. I mean, we know we did the same thing. But, you know, this aftershock that we saw in Chicago, unfortunately for them in their hometown, just couldn't get into a rhythm like they did the first couple events, you know. And it's not for a lack of fire. Sometimes you just don't play well. And, you know, Aftershock just really couldn't get it going on either side of the field consistently, and that's what ended up hurting them.
Yeah. But they have a light, their roster's kind of light. They don't have a ton of depth on that team. Those guys get a lot of spins. But one of the cool things is seeing the emergence of guys like Rob Velez and Brian McKenna. You hear us talk about Chris Sosi and Carl Markowski and A.J. Lawhead all the time. But I really feel that Rob Velez and McKenna, they get a ton of spins too, and they are really starting to emerge as top-level pro players. Just consistency is one of those things that they're starting to develop. You know, those used to be guys that would get to the 50s and then catch a paintball for no good reason, and now they're really starting to develop that depth. So really looking forward to seeing if Aftershock can fight their way out of the Challengers division. Just adds a little bit more drama to their story. You know, it's a legendary team. You know, the Ironmen and Aftershock are the two longest running teams that are currently still playing professional paintball. So these guys are starting a new chapter for that team, and this is just a little bump in the road for them. But they understand that, talk to those guys, and they know that. And I think Mikey Bruno's doing a good job of leading the charge over there. So talking about a team that's resurgent after having a terrible start to their year, and a team that won 4 events out of the 10 that they played heading into this year is Houston Heat.
Yeah, and Houston Heat, it took them a little time to get their get their team to really gel as well. You know, they took on a lot of new players at the beginning of the season, bringing over Greg Sewers, Ryan Moorhead, Tim Montresor. And, you know, just like Edmonton Impact, you know, it takes those guys a little bit of time. I mean, yes, those guys have played together before, but when it's a new team, you know, it's always a new year. You know, it's a new set of events, and it took those guys a little bit. You know, they ended up getting relegated and then coming back after MAO, you know, and their performance in Chicago, you know, was actually pretty impressive. You know, we're watching guys like Chad George and Ryan Moorhead just stat stuffing down the Doritos or down the snake side, point after point after point. And then I really felt like Greg Sewers was the guy who figured out how to play that Dorito side that other teams started watching and going, oh, okay, you know, this is what we got to do to get the job done over here. You know, kind of found out some of those tricks. You know, with all these pros around, you know, you come out and you watch games. It's why you do your homework and do your research. And, you know, you watch guys play, and finally it's like, okay, you know, that's how you do it. You know, and Houston Heat was really good going. They just ran into an Impact team that, you know, had their number in the finals. But, I mean, Heat, other than that first game, I believe it was against Tampa Bay Damage, where they ended up tying and going to overtime. They really were just beating the brakes off people all weekend. So
yeah, he did great, man. Finally, they looked like we thought that they were going to look to start the season, but you know, it's totally understandable that it took them a little bit of time to, you know, get their feet underneath them and figure out who's going to do what. It was awesome to see Ryan Moorhead storm back from that partially torn Achilles tendon. You know, he went to the doctor. The doctor was like, "Yeah, you have a partially torn Achilles tendon. If you had kept playing on this, it would have torn completely, and you'd be out for at least a year if you ever came back." And to see him come back from that injury after not playing for a month and just be smashing on that snake side, and really one of the best players on the snake side by far. So that was pretty amazing to see. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Houston Heat play at the West Coast Open. And then next up, man, is the team that won Dallas and then has just really struggled since then. They got relegated at the Mid-Atlantic Open, and then they had to play Art Chaos in the semifinals of the Challengers Division, and they lost that game. So still stuck in the Challengers Division is Los Angeles Infamous. Yeah,
and I mean, it's a shame that they're stuck down there because there's so much talent on that team, so many exciting players to watch. And, you know, when you go from, you know, #1 right out the gate, determined with all the hard work that they put in, down to the Challengers Division and just kind of get stuck down there for 2 events. I mean, it's do or die coming into Riverside. You know, like we said, there's 3 really solid teams down there right now in Aftershock, X Factor, and Infamous, and one of those teams isn't going to get a chance to play a World Cup. You know, expecting you know, those 3 teams to be really battling out for those 2 Champions Division spots. You know, if Infamous wants to save any hope, you know, for this year being successful, they need to win Riverside in the Challengers Division and give themselves a shot to play at World Cup.
Which, yeah, it would be disaster if they to win the first event and with the exact same roster, and it's literally an all-star cast of paintball players on that team. Yeah. So, you know, hopefully we'll see him back in the Champions Division, and hopefully we'll see him on Sunday playing for that Challengers win again. But but yeah, Infamous just and then also Nikki Cuba does have a knee injury as well. Waiting to hear the severity of that, but yeah, Nikki Cuba could be on the sidelines for the next event, and hopefully it's not as bad as it could potentially be. So moving on from there is they've been the Icemen on on Sunday mornings is Upton 187 crew. They are 10th right now. They took 12th. Coming out of the, you know, in the very first event, they took 12th and 8th and 8th. So, you know, Upton 187 crew getting better, man. Really like that Matt Jarula kid. I think he's going to be a really good player one of these days. But Dan Zaleski, Max Trail, and Eddie Painter just continuing to impress, as well as Greg Lazat. I really think that Greg has stepped up as well, too. It's just one of those things, though. It's a great program. It's just going to take them some time, but you can see them taking those steps to get better. And they have a great attitude about it. Every time I talk to those guys, they have the best attitude as to, you know, what they're looking at, what they need to do, their losses, their wins. I've never seen them really hanging their heads. Like they seem to have it. They have it together.
Yeah. And I'm sure they're getting sick of us talking about them just having good attitudes.
Yeah, same attitude.
You know
yeah,
I mean?
They want to win.
They want to win, you know. And
yeah, they definitely want to win.
It comes to a point, and it's not that they're not capable of it. Just needs to happen faster. You know, we watch them play, and you know they have slow starts, but it's too slow of a start because the tournaments aren't that long. You know, you come out and you practice all the time to come out to these events and show up, and you cannot wait until Sunday morning when you're playing for a relegation game to really step up. You know, so I mean, if it's a matter of you know, them just not being all on the same page early, you know, guys not showing up ready to play enough, or you know, them just not being completely prepared as far as the understanding of what needs to happen to be successful, then they need to get out and go practice some other teams. You know, to get a feel for you know, some of these other top pro teams in practice, because I mean they obviously have the talent to be at this level, but I mean, number 10 in this list right here is not the position that you want to be in. You don't want to be that team going back and forth, and it definitely does take some improvement to be able to fight your way out of that relegation game, you know, to be able to consistently do it, because they consistently lost that game and ended up going back down and having to fight their way back. But you know, they're sitting there on that level and just need to do something different, you know, or something more.
It's going to take time, man. You know, they have to be realistic about it. And I think that's when I talk to them, they get that, and they are hungry for it. And with that hunger will come those wins eventually. It just is like Vicious. I mean, it took them a long time to get to the point where they're taking second place and playing for a win. Yeah. It's going to take Upton some time.
Yeah, and the Vicious guys found that hunger. You know, they found that extra hunger, you know, and that's what you hope 187 can find.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
That's why I believe in, you know, what Vicious is doing. You know, I believe in how these guys' attitude and their change of attitude. Yeah. You know, and I think, you know, I want to see that from 187.
Yeah, well, let's move on from there before we sign off. The top teams that have been bouncing back and forth between the champs and the challengers. Well, Houston VCK is ranked 12th and Art Chaos 11th. Art Chaos has really struggled this year. They won the challengers division in the first event, and then they took last in the champions division and didn't win a game at the Mid-Atlantic Open. Just wasn't their field. And then heading into you know, to Chicago, they won the Challengers division again. So they will be in the Champions division. So we'll see how they fare. Hopefully they do better than they did in Mid-Atlantic Open. And then Houston VCK, they lost pretty badly to Art Chaos in that final, though they did beat them in the prelims. So, you know, I think that Houston VCK, they're going to finally get that chance to see what the competition is like in the Champions division. You know, love the guys that run that program, and they, you know, talk about hard working and, you know, really kind of trying to understand what they need to do to get better. But for their first year in the Challengers League, to number one, be in the semis every single time, and then now to finally, you know, get that victory as Houston VCK took down Red Storm, who was also in their first semifinal. So they're heading in, and Art Chaos is also heading up too. And then 13th is Moscow Red Legion, who's, you know, been back and forth, but they didn't play on Sunday. But, you know, on the strength of some guys really stepping up, the Tauntauns played great for them. Kevin Klum is a baller. Chambon and Colombo also played great for those guys. Chambon and Colombo are in the top 10 for the Top Gun rating, heading into, you know, the fourth event. And then Trenton Top Gun, Texas Storm no longer in it. Sacramento Excessive has reformed their roster, and then Baltimore Revo had come in to take the place of Texas Storm. Then Chattanooga CP, Red Storm, Seattle Thunder kind of, following up or ending up the list of teams. So out of those teams, who do you think has a shot to potentially move up? It's going to be tough because of the top, the 3 top teams down in the Challengers Division.
Well, I definitely think that Revo has a lot of potential. Boom. We got to see them play early on Friday, and I think that they're going to need some time there in the Challengers Division. Excessive, I always expect Excessive to do well, just with, their core knowledge and experience. So I always give them a shot. Top Gun, I just think that they're another team that could be really good if they could just get it together. Picking up Justin Schwartz and Zach Johnson, giving them a couple new weapons should be pretty good. But, Red Storm played some decent ball, CEP. I don't know, it's going to be tough when you have X Factor, Infamous, and Aftershock down there in the Challengers Division for any of these teams to give them a run.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So that's how it's looking heading into the 4th event. Again, the reason why it's so important, the champs and the challengers, the bottom 4 teams in the champs division play each other Sunday morning to see who gets relegated, and the loser of those games is not going to be playing in the Champions Division 4 World Cup to have a chance to win the title, which is what all these pro teams want to do. And then also, like Todd was just saying, those 3 teams that are stuck down in the Challengers Division for the next event, Aftershock, Infamous, and who's the 3rd one?
X Factor.
X Factor. I mean, X Factor won the World Cup last year. So it's going to be a crazy event. It's coming at you August 8th through the 10th on paintballaccess.com. Thank you guys for supporting us, man. We're trying to do all we can over here to progress the sport and provide the best show possible for you guys. We need your help to do it. So please, like we always say, spread the paintball gospel. I say because it's true. Paintball is an amazing sport, and the guys that do it at the highest level, it's incredibly hard to do, and it's very entertaining to watch these guys throw down. And so much is at stake at this next one. Also, we're going to have a live breakdown coming at you guys the last week in July, the week before the event, and so that should be interesting. We'll have some special guests on there as well too, and also go to pspevents.com, sign up, and also think about going to World Cup, man. World Cup is going to be here before we know it, and that is going to be it's the Mecca of paintball, man. You definitely want to check that out. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Matty Marshall with Todd Martinez. We'll see you next time on the breakdown.
This is the Earth. The Earth is beautiful. Earth is where we play paintball. It is important to recycle in order to save the Earth. Do not recycle custom paintball jersey designs. Get what you pay for. Get a fresh original design at rosalife.com.
Massive opportunities, both with the sport of paintball and for your business. If we are successful in taking our sport to another level, unite with Paintball Access in our quest to elevate paintball and broadcast it to the world. There are advertising packages available for any size business. Join us. Advertise with PBA and help us change the sport for the better forever.